What is going on, investors? Time to talk about one of the maybe the most widely held stock in the stock market. I certainly have my shares of this one, and that is Apple, AAPL. This stock just reported their earnings after the bell today, and spoiler alert, they were pretty darn good. They beat across the board earnings, revenue across all their product lines, pretty much beat all the estimates that were out there. So we'll talk about what that did to the stock market. It is the stock chart. It's actually kind of just hanging out up here. So we'll talk about what that means going forward with Apple, see if that's a buying opportunity right now, or if you should potentially wait. Now, from a valuation perspective, I just wanted to throw this in here really quick. I got price to sales here, a 5-year view of Apple's price to sales. We're at an all-time high. 8 times sales we're paying for Apple. Look, a couple of years ago, you could have gotten this as like 2 times sales. But here's the deal with Apple. Now, their sales mix has started to shift just slightly a little bit over the last couple of years, especially over the last couple of years when they've added these services. So things like iCloud and all the little things you pay monthly now for Apple, it is starting to bolster up these revenues. Now, we've got the 3 months ended here. We've got the most recent quarter here in December, $111 billion. This is $111 billion in net sales in a quarter, not a year, a quarter, not a lifetime, a quarter. That is what I can't emphasize how impressive that is with a company like this. Obviously, we've gotten used to it. Some of us, like myself, who's analyzed this company for a long time, have gotten numb to it. But just realize $111 billion in sales in a quarter. Just absolutely phenomenal. Now, we obviously have to spend a little bit of money to make that. So we got product here. We spent $62 billion on product, much more actually than the previous year. The services, this is what gets juicy. This is what has everybody excited. Notice we spent about $5 billion to make $15 billion. Those are huge margins. Notice about the same in the previous quarter, but those margins just keep ticking up on that services side. Obviously, the product side, we spent 62 to make 95. Really good margins, considering the business that Apple is in, consumer electronic space, not known for high margins. These are spectacular for what they're doing. So we've got our total cost of sales here coming in at 67. We were at 56 the previous quarter. That gives us a gross margin, or gross profit in this case, of $44 billion. Okay, that's well above, about $9 billion more than the $35 billion we did in the previous year. Now, not full story. We do have other costs over at Apple. We got some research and development, and we got some selling, general, and administrative. But guess what? It's not a lot, honestly. We spent 10.8. And we spent, just roughly about that. When your revenues tick up like this and your gross margin ticks up like this, to have your operating expenses not really go up that much is pretty impressive. That gives us operating income here of $33 billion. That's not for a year. That's not for 10 years. That is for 1 quarter. $33 billion. Incredible. So we've got net income after we pay some income taxes and things like that at $28.75 billion. That's about $6.5 billion more than the previous year. That's $1.70 per share and $1.68 diluted, well over and above where we were at last year. Apple pays just a little bit of money, 82 cents a dividend. I think looks like they announced a 20-cent dividend. So yeah, they're still paying 80 cents. This is a company that can pay a lot more. We'll show you what else they're doing with the cash on hand here in a minute when we get to cash flows. Now, I wanted to show you this too as well. Net sales by segment. We see that Americas are strong. Europe is strong. Greater China. Wow, that is explosive growth right there. That is good to see. We also see Japan as well, and the rest of Asia Pacific, just across the board, everything going well, especially this China number. This is obviously could potentially, I think this year could easily overtake Europe and maybe one day overtake America. I don't know if that's possible, but maybe. So we got net sales by category. Also something that you want to pay attention here with Apple. Obviously iPhone, I'm in here. I bought a new iPhone this year. iMac, I bought a Mac. Here's our Mac. Here's our iPads right here. I bought a new iMac, so I'm in here a little bit. And our wearables as well. Also bought some new headphones from Apple. Everything across the board has just moved up from the iPhone to the Mac to the wearables to the services. Everything just churning forward. Now, from a financial perspective, I think you probably guess this company's doing pretty good, and that would be a pretty good guess from a financial perspective. Here's our most recent quarter here. We've got $36 billion in straight cash, homie, and then we've got these marketable securities, which are basically like cash as well. $76 billion, $76 billion in cash. It's hard to say with a straight face, but that's a lot of money. So we've got total current assets ticking up about $11 billion to 154. Now, not full story. We do have a lot of debt on this balance sheet. Okay, this is our term debt. We're at about 7.7. We've got our total debt down here at about $100 billion. That's a lot of money. But again, we have a lot of that sitting on the balance sheet in cash, and this is an extraordinarily low interest rate. When you go look at what Apple is borrowing money for, I tell you what, if any of you want to lend me money at twice that rate, I would take it. Now, from a cash flow perspective, just looking beautiful. We made $38 billion in cash flows from operations. The last thing I wanted to show you here is what they spend a lot of their money on. So you might wonder, well, where's all this cash going? They generate $100 billion in revenue. Where is that going? A lot of it is actually going to this repurchase of common stock. We see last year they did, is this last year? Yes, that's last year. So we did $20 billion in the previous quarter. I mean, this is just for a quarter as well. Wow. So they spent $24 billion repurchasing stock. So it just shows you that they are buying back a lot of stock, retiring lots and lots of stock, and they're paying back a little bit of debt. I mean, just the minimum, okay? So it's a good trade-off in my opinion. They're basically borrowing money. They basically borrowed money to repurchase stock, and considering how well the stock has appreciated, well, it's actually a pretty good trade-off. So now let's jump over to the stock chart. This stock is in a pretty well-defined uptrend right now. It's hanging out up here. So Apple's kind of in rarefied air up here, okay? There's not a lot of price action up here to go on. It looks like right now in the intermediate term, 145 is kind of the top of the mark, and down here, just intermediate, very, very, very short term with this company. Any sell-off into the 139 range, in my opinion, could be a buying opportunity. You'd want to evaluate how the overall market is doing at that time, because you could get deeper pullback in a stock like this because people have done really well with Apple stock. It could be one of the first things that they sell in kind of a broader market sell-off to kind of lock in some gains and things like that. Any pullback to 128, any pullback to 119, and certainly all the way down here to about 109, in my opinion, would be fantastic opportunities to buy this stock if you are given that opportunity. The other thing that could happen, in my opinion, and it's probably a likely scenario, is we kind of go sideways up here, kind of like what we've done down here. Okay, we kind of went sideways and then we resumed an uptrend. Same thing could happen with Apple up here. We can kind of go sideways, bounce between 137 and 145, call it, bounce in this range, maybe a wider range. We could come down here to 130s and then bounce back up. That is possible as well. This upper channel could become our new kind of channel sideways, just like this was our channel before. Now we could be channeling up here, and I think you could accumulate the stock if that's something that you want to do. Absolutely phenomenal numbers. I think that's goes without saying with Apple. Extremely well capitalized, extremely well-run company as well. There's probably lots of holes you can pick in Apple, but from a fundamental perspective, this stock is absolutely phenomenal. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. We'll be back with more videos very soon. Good luck with your investments.